In Canton, the emperor's commissioner orders a foreign poison surrendered, or the sea itself will become a grave. Thousands of chests sit behind guarded walls, and one signature could start a war. By the end, you'll understand how Lin Zexu's 1839 crackdown forced Britain and China into a collision of law, addiction, trade, and imperial pride, and why both sides believed they were defending civilization. This is a story where policy becomes personal. Merchants lose fortunes, families lose sons to addiction, officials gamble their careers, and a single crackdown turns a commercial dispute into gunboat diplomacy. When Lin Zexu moved to destroy the opium in Canton, was he stopping a national catastrophe or lighting the fuse of an unwinnable war? Canton, spring 1839. The river smells like trade. Tea, silk, and something sharper. Opium, a foreign merchant, wakes to shouting outside the factory walls. Boots on stone. Orders in a hard, official voice. The gates are shut. The streets are blocked. The city is closing. By noon, the message is everywhere. The Imperial Commissioner has arrived, Lin Zexu. He is not here to negotiate. He is here to end the poison. In the foreign quarter, men look toward the water. Their ships sit at anchor. Their warehouses are full. Their fortunes are trapped behind a ring of Chinese soldiers, and Lin does something immediate, concrete, unmistakable. He seals the foreign factories and places them under guard. No one leaves. No one trades. No one is safe from his demand. Hand over every chest of opium, or starve. How far will an empire go when it decides it has had enough? To understand why Canton locks down, you have to feel the pressure that built up in the years before Lin arrived. The Qing Empire still sees itself as the center of the world. Foreign trade is allowed, but it is penned in. One port, one season, one system, the Canton System. Foreign merchants come for tea above all else. Europe is drinking China dry. Silver flows into China in exchange. But then the balance shifts. British merchants want a product that can reverse the silver drain. They find it in India. Opium. At first it creeps in. A few chests. Quiet bribes. Coastal smugglers. Then it surges. Opium moves from the shoreline into the market towns. From the market towns into the cities. Into the hands of laborers, soldiers, officials, students. It is not only a habit. It is a leak in the state. Silver starts flowing out, corruption spreads, and the emperor receives reports that are no longer deniable. The court debates. Some argue for legalization and taxation. If you cannot stop it, control it. Others insist the state cannot survive if the poison becomes ordinary. In Beijing, the Daoguang Emperor makes a choice. He will send a man known for severity, honesty, and stamina, Lin Zexu. And Lin does not travel south to talk. He travels south to act, but when he reaches Canton, does he understand the kind of machine he is stepping into? Lin arrives in Canton like a verdict. He studies the port, the river channels, the warehouses, the brokers who translate, bargain, and blur the edges of legality. He also studies the local officials, because he knows the opium trade does not survive on foreign ships alone. It survives because people inside the system look away. Lin's first targets are Chinese. Dealers, smugglers, users in the wrong places. Officials who take payments. Arrests begin. Confessions follow. Some are forced. Some are bought. Some are simply inevitable once fear enters the streets. Lin issues proclamations that read like thunder. He calls opium a deadly smoke. He calls those who spread it criminals. He demands that Chinese subjects stop. He demands that foreign traders comply. And then he makes the foreign community feel what the Qing state can do when it chooses to. Canton's foreign factories are not embassies. They are tolerated enclaves. Lin treats them like what they are. Property under the emperor's authority. He tightens the ring. Food supplies are restricted. Servants are pressured. Compradors and interpreters are warned. The foreign merchants begin to realize that their normal defenses will not work. They cannot appeal to local allies. Lin is sweeping those allies away. They cannot bribe their way out. Lin is making bribery dangerous. They cannot simply sail away. Their opium is on ships nearby, and their trade depends on staying. The standoff hardens. Lin's demand remains simple. All opium. Every chest. Now. But will the foreigners believe he is truly willing to crush their commerce to get it? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. Lin didn't come to negotiate. He came with the emperor's authority and a deadline. But why did the foreign merchants suddenly look less like traders and more like hostages? Pause the diplomacy for a second. Imagine you're the clerk counting chests at the riverbank, because one missing seal is about to become an international accusation. In the foreign quarter, leadership is uncertain. There are private merchants, there are company men, there are captains whose ships are their entire world. And there is the British representative in Canton, caught between profit and policy. The British government has not sent an army, not yet. It has sent traders. And traders are used to pressure. They are used to finding a loophole. But Lin's blockade is not a tariff dispute. It is a moral and political campaign, carried out with the confidence of a state. Lin speaks through proclamations and through intermediaries. He also speaks through silence. Days pass. The foreigners inside the sealed factories measure time by dwindling supplies and rising anger. They write letters, they argue. Some want to surrender the opium immediately. Others fear that surrender sets a precedent that will end their business forever. A decision forms. They will hand over the opium, but they will do it in a way that turns responsibility into a British issue, not a merchant issue. The British representative steps in. He asks merchants to surrender their opium to him, under the promise that Britain will compensate them. It is a crucial move. It transforms opium from private cargo into a matter of national honor. Lin's ring tightens as the first chests begin to move, boat after boat, chest after chest. The river becomes a conveyor belt. A fortune is leaving foreign hands. But when the opium is finally delivered, will Lin destroy it? Or will he use it as a bargaining chip? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. The British superintendent tells his countrymen to hand over opium in the name of the crown, then asks Britain to pay them back. If London didn't authorize the trade, why would it cover the bill? Now flip the map. The most important battlefield isn't a fort or a harbor, it's a ledger, and the numbers are about to trap everyone. The opium is gathered at Humen, downriver from Canton, a place of forts and choke points, a place that can watch the sea. And now, a place that will watch history. Thousands of chests are stacked like a dark wall. The scale is hard to grasp. Not a few crates, not a token seizure, a mountain of narcotics. Lin stages the destruction as a public act, not a secret disposal, not a quiet sale, a statement. Workers dig trenches, they line them, they bring in water, they bring in lime, and then they break open the chests. Opium paste spills out. It is mixed and dissolved. The black mass turns into a foul slurry. It is washed away into the sea. Day after day, the work continues. Smoke does not rise. There is no dramatic fire. There is something colder. Method. Administration, a bureaucracy of destruction. Foreign observers watch. Some see it as theft. Some see it as humiliation. Lin sees it as cleansing. He has forced the world to witness the Qing Empire acting like an empire again. He has made the foreign merchants powerless, and he has done it without firing a shot. But is this the end of the opium trade, or the beginning of a war? Lin writes a letter to Queen Victoria, arguing that Britain would never tolerate opium on its own streets. So why did that moral appeal never reach the person it was meant to change? Forget canons for a moment. One letter, written in perfect moral logic, is about to vanish into bureaucracy, and that disappearance changes everything. Lin does not stop at destruction. He wants deterrence. He wants prevention. He wants foreign traders to sign bonds. Written promises. Legal commitment. No more opium. If you bring it, you will face severe penalties. Some foreign merchants hesitate. In their legal culture, signing such a bond is an admission that Chinese law can reach them. It is a surrender of jurisdiction. It is also a promise they may not be able to keep, because the opium economy is bigger than any single man. Lin insists anyway. He believes the moral case is absolute. And to make that moral case, he reaches beyond Canton. He writes to the monarch of Britain. The letter is direct, almost bewildered. He asks how a nation that forbids opium at home can sell it abroad. He asks how profit can justify ruin. He frames the issue as right and wrong, not as a dispute between states. But his letter travels into a world of different assumptions. In London, the debate is not about morality alone, it is about commerce, sovereignty, and power. And in that debate, the destruction at human becomes more than a crackdown. It becomes an insult, a loss, a challenge. Lin believes he has defended China. Britain begins to ask whether its prestige can tolerate this. So now the question shifts. If neither side will bend, what does the river at Canton become when gunships arrive? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. The foreign factories are sealed, food is restricted, and the river becomes a choke point. If this was law enforcement, why did it start to feel like siege warfare? Take a breath, because the destruction isn't a metaphor. It's days of labor, smoke, lime, and a stench that turns policy into a spectacle. The foreign merchants leave Canton under a cloud. Trade falters. Trust collapses. And along the coast, small confrontations begin to spark. Not yet a declared war, more like friction. A collision between two systems that cannot agree on the rules. There are ships that refuse inspections. There are Chinese patrols that press too close. There are sailors who think with fists. There are officials who think with punishments. Violence, once it appears, has a way of multiplying. A single incident can become a symbol. A symbol can become policy. And policy can become a fleet. Back in Britain, merchants and politicians argue about what happened in Canton. Was the seized opium contraband with no legal protection, or was it property taken under duress? Was Lin enforcing Chinese law, or was he extorting foreigners? The answer depends on where you stand. Meanwhile, the Qing court reads its own reports. Lin is celebrated by some as a savior, but others worry. They worry about the foreign reaction. They worry about coastal defenses. They worry about whether Lin has provoked a crisis he cannot contain. Lin himself continues to work as if sheer resolve can settle the matter. He strengthens enforcement. He pressures the trade network. He believes the foreigners will ultimately choose lawful trade over outlaw profit. But what if the foreigners choose something else entirely? a mountain of opium is surrendered, then destroyed in full public view. But when you annihilate a fortune in broad daylight, who do you make your enemy for life? When Britain decides to act, it does not send negotiators alone. It sends ships, steam and sail, cannons, marines, a modern navy, trained to make distant ports obey. The first engagements are not just battles. They are demonstrations. They show what industrial firepower can do against older fortifications. They show how mobility changes everything. Chinese defenses are brave, but often outgunned. Fort walls splinter. Junchigs scatter. Commanders discover that courage cannot stop a shell. For Qing officials, the war is a shock. Not only the violence, the speed, the reach. The way the British can appear at one point, strike, and then move. Lin's crackdown, meant to seal Canton, has now helped open the entire coastline to pressure, and in the politics of an empire, shocks demand someone to blame. Lin's enemies speak. They say he acted too harshly. They say he did not understand the foreigners. They say he invited disaster. Lin is removed from his post, punished, sent away. The man who destroyed the opium is now treated as a liability. In Britain, the war is defended as protection of trade and national honor. In China, the war feels like a storm breaking through the sea gates. But if Lin is gone, does the problem disappear? Or does it grow larger than any one official could ever manage? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. Lin's crackdown is celebrated in Beijing as righteous and decisive. Yet which detail in Canton's reports quietly hints that the court is being told what it wants to hear? Here's the twist in plain sight. The crackdown succeeds exactly where it's visible, and fails exactly where it matters most, and the reason is about to surface. War forces choices. The Qing court seeks peace, then hesitates, then seeks it again. British forces press for terms that will change the rules permanently. Not just an apology, not just a compensation. A restructuring of the relationship. Ports, tariffs, diplomatic access, a place to anchor power. Negotiations unfold under threat. When one side negotiates with cannons in view, every word is heavier. For China, the issue is sovereignty. For Britain, the issue is precedent. If China can seize and destroy British-linked property and suffer no consequence, what does that mean for the empire's reach? So the demands harden. And the Qing, facing military pressure and internal strain, begins to concede. A treaty emerges. It is framed as peace, but it is also a rearrangement, a set of openings that cannot easily be closed again. For many in China, it feels like a humiliation. For many in Britain, it feels like a victory. And yet the original question that Lin tried to answer remains. What does a state do when a foreign commerce profits from domestic ruin? Because even after peace is signed, the appetite for profit does not vanish, and the demand for opium does not vanish either. If the treaty ends the fighting, does it end the poison? British merchants insist they're victims of extortion. Chinese officials insist they're stopping a narcotic invasion. When both sides claim the law, whose law is actually in force at the river's edge? One more reset. Listen to the word both sides keep repeating, because their definitions don't match, and that mismatch is the fuse. Lin Zexu's personal story does not end with his removal. He is sent away from the coast. He serves elsewhere. He remains, in many accounts, a man of conscience inside a system that could be both strong and fragile. Later, he will be remembered in different ways. As a patriot, as a moral crusader, as a scapegoat, as a symbol of a China that tried to draw a line. But symbols can be simplified. The reality is messier. Lin fought opium with administrative power, with public theatre, and with personal conviction. He was up against a global trade network. He was up against a British imperial economy tied to India. He was up against smuggling systems that could adapt. He was up against addiction itself. In Canton, his crackdown worked in the narrow sense. He seized the opium. He destroyed it. He forced the foreign merchants to submit. But the consequences spread far beyond Canton. His success became a trigger, and the war that followed reshaped China's relationship with the world. So how should we judge Lin? As a man who defended his country the only way he could? Or as a man whose uncompromising justice collided with an age of gunboats and lost, returned to the river? Canton's waterfront is still crowded, still loud, still commercial. But after 1839, the memory of closure lingers. The day the gates shut, the days the foreigners waited, the months the opium was dismantled into wastewater and carried out to sea. Lin's crackdown is sometimes told as the moment China said no. And it is. But it is also the moment the world replied in a language of force. This story is not only about opium, it is about law. Whose law counts in a port where money comes from outside? It is about sovereignty. Can a state enforce its moral boundaries when foreign powers refuse those boundaries? It is about modernization. What happens when an old military system meets a new industrial? And it is about human weakness. Because opium is not an abstract trade. It is a pipe in a room. A man who cannot work. A family selling heirlooms. A soldier whose pay vanishes into smoke. Lin wanted to stop that. He used the tools he had. He chose confrontation. And in doing so, he helped ignite a conflict that would scar the century. Which leaves one final question hanging over humans' shore. If another Lin had chosen compromise instead of destruction, would China have avoided war? Or would the gunboats have come anyway?